All right. So everybody that's on, just want to welcome Jordan Tiegs. Jordan is a former Badger of ours, and I just want to. I'll read out some of his kind of. It's not a very long career, but I'm sure it seems like it's a longer one. And really, kind of where you're at now is you're kind of heading in a new direction again, and I'm sure that's kind of exciting. It's a new chapter, kind of from the old Woodstock days and all those kind of things. So the guys that don't know it, and so Jordan played. It was Woodstock, right? That you were playing in before he came to Badgers. So yeah, he played at Woodstock, came to Badgers, and I think it was around up to 2006. Anyway, I can't even remember how many years you were in.
My first year was with Grimes and minor midget, so I had 3 years at the Badgers.
Right on.
In 05, I think. Yeah,
that was a pretty good series of teams right there with
we won.
Grimes, Stewart's, and you. Yeah. We had was Romac we brought up. I know the Nationals the one year.
Yeah, we won a couple ball games.
Yeah, a couple, nothing too much. And then we won you're at the junior national team for a bit as well, and I think we won a bronze medal at national championships. So you're one of the pack for sure. And then in 2006, you were drafted by the Reds, and I think you decided to go to Sauk Valley at that point.
No, I got drafted at Sauk Valley, and then I went to College of Charleston instead of signing.
Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, so you had Sauk Valley, had a couple of conference championships, sectional title, and I think you were on a two-time all-conference honoree. So not too bad start of college.
Not bad.
Yeah, not too bad. And then College Charleston, there, University of Indianapolis, and in your senior year struck out 81 batters in 83 innings, and you guys missed one win away from a College World Series. Hate to bring that up. I know that's probably bitter.
Remind me.
Yeah, I'm sure those ones are always bitter for sure. And then after graduating, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pulling most of this stuff up. I've kind of followed you along, but I don't know everything for sure. And I think you had graduated U Indy, and then you played some independent ball with Evansville and Oakland County Cruisers, and then off at the coaching with U Indy after that, right from 2012.
Well, yeah, fall of 11 was my first when I went back to get my master's, and I ended up getting to take over the pitching, and we ended up going to the World Series that first year, so I made up for it as a player.
There you go. Perfect. And then I think you had 11 straight. I looked up, you had 11 straight shutouts, and one was a no-hitter in that one year.
Yeah, we had some good arms.
Yeah, looked like it. It was really good. And then now you're with the Texas Rangers and player development and pitching.
Yeah, I spent the last 5 years as the pitching coach at Indiana State University, Division I in Indiana, and then just joined the Rangers this summer. So
nice. So I think, like we were saying, it's kind of a big switch around from college ball now. I'm sure the tempo and the temperament and all that kind of stuff is a bit of a change of pace, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it definitely is. College is a little more intensity, a little more upbeat, because you know that I think it's part of the age that you get the kids, and it's a big combination of short-term and long-term development, but the long-term is really 3 or 4 years, unlike here where you get an 18 or 19-year-old and you're now, how can we get him to the big leagues by the time he's 25? So it's a little bit different. I would say that, and obviously the games and schedule and things like that play a big factor. But within that, though, there's a lot of similarities. The kids aren't any different. I will tell you that much. The 18-year-old coming from high school to college and coming from high school to professional baseball, the way they act, and for the most part, is pretty much the same kid.
I can kind of believe that. I don't think the temperament really changes. I think it's like anything. You'll have somebody that is more mature and less mature, and it just kind of jumps its way into that for sure. So I got a pile of questions for you, and then I'll let the guys kind of ask some questions to kind of
Nice.
go in that way, because obviously I want to bait you into some questions, a little bit under the college side for sure, because I know you haven't. That's been really most of your career, and I think by this point you've known most of the ins and outs of what goes on in recruiting and um, all that type of thing. So kind of want kind of guide you in that direction for a little bit, and then I'm sure some of the guys will ask you some questions, and we'll have some definitely good questions. We've had some good ones over the last couple of Zoom sessions we've had so far.
I'm looking forward to it any way I can help.
Nice. So first one, it's kind of like I've asked a couple of guys before, is like, what does a typical college baseball day look like for you guys, say at UIndy? So, and kind of go from like the off season into the end season, because I know that'll change a little bit on your routines and time periods and stuff.
Yeah, I would say like even from Indy, which was a Division II, 3 years there, and then 5 years at Division I Indiana State. I wouldn't say the schedule was a ton different. There's rules and regulations you have to abide by, but the reality is like in the fall, you're waking up and you're going to class anytime between like 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. We usually practice on the field between 2 and 5, lift after that in the fall. Probably I think at Indiana State we were lifting 4 or 5 times a week after practice. 3 days a week with study tables after that. So you got about an hour in there for dinner. Study tables are usually around 7 to 9 p.m. 3 days a week, and then you're going to bed probably because it's a long day. Within that, there's some time for social life, but the reality is it kind of depends on what your major is. That has to play a big factor in how much time you have to devote to school. I will say the lightest time of the year is probably in that November, December time frame when you're kind of out of team practice. So it's in a segment called individuals where couple hours a week. You'll be with a smaller group of players and a coach, and you might only be on the field 3 days a week that time. So you got a little bit more time for freedom. Same thing though, the lifting's still pretty heavy at that point. You just don't have the mass amount of team practice. So that's kind of your one piece of downtime. And with that being said, though, you're ramping up into finals and things like that. So the schoolwork's a little bit heavier. But once you guys get back in January, it's basically full go from there on all the way through. Spring semester, guys, like I call it the freshman trap. You come in, you do well in the fall, especially in school. Baseball's going, you're excited, you're away from home. It's good. You're always in the same spot. Spring is when people get a wake-up call because now we are traveling. The season starts mid-February, so you have about 6 weeks to maybe 4 to 6 weeks to get your feet under you, get your classes rolling. But at the same time, you're prepping for your first season, and then all of a sudden, mid-February till hopefully late in May, you're playing. And if you're a school in the Midwest or a northern school, you're going to spend the first 4 weeks of that probably on the road. And what I mean by road is we would leave on a Wednesday afternoon. You get out of class 2 or 3, we're getting on a bus. We're busing 8, 10, 12 hours, wherever it might be. And you'll miss school Thursday, you'll miss school Friday, you're going to practice Thursday, play a game Saturday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get back on a bus that Sunday night, probably roll into town 2 or 3 in the morning, get up for your 8 a.m. class on Monday because you can't miss it. And you'll be in class Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, get on another bus Wednesday evening, and off you go again. So the time management with school is probably the biggest piece that guys miss the boat on that very first year. And that's where you kind of see, I have a 3.5 GPA my first semester, 2.5 my second. What happened? It's called season and travel. So that's kind of the big thing. Springtime though, when your season's going, it's the best part. You get basically every Monday is off, and then you're 6 days a week between lifting, practicing, playing games, and it flies by.
Nice. That's far cry from what we had when you were here.
Yeah, a little different.
A little bit different. So that's good. It's always a good to hear from somebody else. I know it's guys are probably tired of me preaching sometimes about what needs to be done and why we do the things that we do here and why we train and why we time management is, important, things like that. So it's good to hear from somebody else to say, this is what it's really like. It's not just walk in and be like it is here or less than what it is here.
Yeah, I will say, like, and this is going back to your original question about pro ball to college, like the growth that you see from when a kid steps on campus freshman year, day one, and they go through that first week of practice, like the way you are then to the way you are your second year on day one, the growth is incredible. A lot of guys will figure out the sink or swim. Like you're either going to prioritize your life as this is what I want to do, or you're not, because there's no in between there unless talent is just here, which chances are it's not going to be for 99% of us. So in order to truly make it and be successful in that arena of, especially at the Division 1 level where the demands are what they are, like you learn to prioritize, you learn to grow up really quick, and you learn to figure out, okay, what is important, what's not. And if it's not, like, you're going to weed yourself out. That's just the truth. I'm not trying to scare you guys, but I see it day in and day out all the time. But when you get through to it and all of a sudden you're that second year, it's incredible on how much you mature and have grown up, and you're just like, is that the same kid? And but it's awesome. That to me, that was one of the most fulfilling things, was seeing the growth of players on and off the field as those 3 and 4 years went by.
Nice. That's great. So next one. So I don't know if you had a touch into the recruiting side or not, but just kind of this question was more like, what type of athlete would you guys be looking for at the D1 or any kind of level that you've been involved in?
Yeah, I know I was very heavily involved. I would say that probably number one is just like guys that want to work. The work ethic, as you've kind of heard why I listed what your day looks like work ethic is the biggest thing, especially at places that maybe aren't drawing in the best of the best. Maybe we get the next best guy that has a chance to play professional baseball if he puts in the work ethic. And those are the guys we want that are, like I said, they're willing to do whatever it takes. If we can provide you all the necessary information and the places to do it and things like that, are you capable of taking care of the rest? That's kind of the big thing. I want guys that would care. They care about getting better. They care about their growth on and off the field. Guys, like I said, that are going to put in the time. And ultimately, the biggest one is probably being competitive. We see that piece can sometimes be missing. You see a lot of talented kids that come up short, and sometimes it's just the competitiveness isn't there, and other kids, like, it just flows through your veins nonstop. You can't turn it off. It doesn't matter what we're doing. I'm sure you see it all the time with guys there. It's like you might be out in the driveway playing basketball and you can't turn off how competitive you are. And to me, that can make up for a lot in the missing skill department. We sometimes classify those kids as gamers, but the reality is they see an opportunity to beat somebody, and in their mind it goes to a different place. So those guys are guys that we find ourselves attracted to a lot of times. And then guys that show passion. You go watch a game, like, I'm attracted to guys that I see look like they enjoy being out there, that they look like they're having fun. They look like they want to be there. Those are the guys that you're going to make me like you more as a recruiter if you look like that you care to be there and you're excited to be there, and you look like you're just having fun. That to me is awesome to see. If I see a guy just kind of dragging around, you're walking up to the game, dragging your feet in your bag, and you're crazy if you think that we don't notice that stuff. You're crazy to think if we don't notice the kids that will ask their mom for water and things like that, or go down and talk to their girlfriend between games or innings. I mean, sorry, not between games, but more during the game. Like, you're crazy if you think recruiters and scouts don't notice that stuff, especially when we notice you on the field. If we notice the skill on the field, we're going to all of a sudden start locking into, okay, well, what do you really like? because you guys can be fake to us. We understand that. So we got to find ways to figure out who you really are when you don't think we're watching. And to me, those are some of the things we're looking for.
Nice. Now, what about the academic side? Is that something that's, obviously there's going to be a standard to get in, but some guys can be at the very bottom of that standard. And
Yeah. What I would say with the academic stuff, guys, obviously it depends in school to school on their requirements. But here's what I would tell you. Do as much as you can in high school with your grades and your test scores to make yourself that much more attractive to schools. And I say that from a financial standpoint. So if we have, because our academic money, even at Indiana State, and I know a lot of schools operate like this. So the better your grades are, if you hit a certain level of a GPA or a grade average score coming out of Canada, it'll transfer over to a GPA, or test scores. Like if you reach a certain level, you are now worth this much more of academic money. Okay. And the more academic money that you can receive, okay, that's more attractive for us because we know to make it affordable for you, it's going to cost us less athletic money. Okay, baseball is very strong right now on how much athletic money we have to give out. If you think about it, 11.7 scholarships divided amongst 26, 27 players is not a lot to go around. So any chance that we get where we can see a kid that wow, he's going to qualify for a ton of academic money here. If you're a bubble guy for us, as in like we kind of like you, but you're not our dude, but all of a sudden we know how much academic money you're going to get. Oh man, that's a big check mark in the right direction for us to pursue you a lot more. So again, like I said, whether you need the grades or not to get into the school, don't think of it that way. Think of the better I can get academically, the less it's going to cost for not only the school to recruit you, but also like your families. And the dollar sucks already coming from Canada to the US. So you're going to get screwed that way, for lack of a better term. But any way you can improve your academics and test scores will only help you, I promise.
nice. That's great to hear. Yeah, it is pretty tough. I know I think when Mitch went, we were kind of lucky with the dollar that it was only like, I don't even know what it was, like $1.10. Now it's like $1.35, sometimes $1.40, right? So
And a lot
it's
of schools understand that if they haven't had to deal with it, like fortunately I have, and we've been able to recruit a fair amount of Canadians in my time, but again, that's a big deal. So any way you can help yourselves and your families, that's really big.
nice. Next one, white. So kind of into the physical numbers. So at the levels that you were at, I know we heard from Tyler D'Alessandro and Winston or Salem International, the type of level that they would take at a kind of a D2 type level.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of numbers would you look at for kind of the D1 level where you guys were at? I know sometimes maybe the North over the South can make a bit of a difference on the talent pool sometimes. So the guys that are thinking maybe South, maybe they fit better in the North, even though that's the kind of the dream, I guess.
Yeah, and I think the tough thing to separate there is like those southern schools typically don't come up north so much. Reason being is if you think of Florida, like they don't need to leave the state. There's so many baseball players there. There's so many baseball players in Georgia. There's so many baseball players in California, and not the crazy amount of schools. So that's where it kind of like they have enough there. I wouldn't say that you have to be better to go down south because, like I said, it's just they don't have the need to leave that area, if that makes sense. Now, for us, so we've been pretty good. Put it this way: you need a tool to stand out. Is the first thing we want to see. If you're a right-handed pitcher, like if you're a junior, senior in high school, like we're looking carry you at least 88. Velocity is the easy one to jump to. That doesn't mean it has to be that. That's just a very easy one to jump to. It's the first thing we all see, right? You see all the radar guns, and then it's off of that. Okay, is that enough velo wherever it is? If it's 86, if it's 92, where do you fall on that spectrum to see how much more else we need to see? So they'll think of it, the lesser the velo, we don't write you off, but it's okay. What does the command look like? What does the poise look like? Can you spin a breaking ball, or just spin the ball? It doesn't even have to be a great one, but if we can start to see like good rotation on the ball, that tells us there's something to work with there. Projection's another one. If you're only 84 to 86, but you're 6'3", 170 pounds, like, and you move really well, there's a chance we're gonna really take a shot on that, because we know adding some strength and getting to a weight program like ours, or a school where you can handle the nutrition and pump that into them, like there's going to be some growth there. So I think it's a spectrum of kind of where do you fall. If you get into the low 90s numbers, then we're not so concerned about the command and other things, because we feel like that we should be able to help teach you that. So it's kind of a moving needle, if that makes sense. I would just think of it this way: like the less you have from a velo standpoint, think of, okay, what else do I bring to the table? Is it elite command? Is it a really good off-speed pitch? Is it I'm just ultra competitive? Do I move really well? We look at delivery breakdowns. Those are another thing, just kind of seeing if guys are at risk more than others for injuries, or how much projection do we see with this guy in the next 3 or 4 years. Left-handers probably take everything you just heard and move it down one notch, just because you're rare. Moving around the diamond, I would say catchers. This is us personally at Indiana State. We were defensive first minded. So when I say that, though, I'm not talking throwing. I'm talking like your ability to receive the baseball. That was by far probably the most important piece for us. I would say throwing was maybe second or third, depending on where the bat was. So the bat would obviously be another one, but flat out just catching the ball and either having the bat or the arm to go with it is what would make us attract and leaders. We want guys that are vocal in that position, guys that aren't scared to speak. We want to see how you interact with your pitcher, with your teammates, things like that. Shortstop's definitely by far the number one defensive spot for us. I don't care about your bat, to be dead honest. It's just a bonus if you can flat out pick it. Looking at your hands, your feet, how light are you on your feet is kind of one thing that we would look for a lot. Arm strength, kind of the third thing, honestly. We've had some shortstops. All our last 5 straight shortstops have all been decent draft picks at Indiana State. And probably one of them had a plus arm. The others didn't, but they moved so well. They didn't make errors. I would say the rest of the infield is kind of like, we have an argument that your second best defender might be a third baseman. So we're looking for probably bats anytime you're on the corner. That's probably your number one thing. If you don't have a bat, you better be able to do something. Run, contact skills, when you're not looking at power, I should say. The only other really true defensive one we're looking at is center field. So catcher, center field, shortstop, just your typical up the middle. Like, we have to be able to defend those areas, excuse me, and hopefully you have a bat to go with it. But, the whole 60 time thing, yeah, that's important for us. But again, it's more of like, is it a plus, or as long as it's not the other direction and you're trying to play one of those positions in the middle of the diamond. Our second baseman, honestly, this year at school was one of our worst runners, but he really defended. He could hit. He did everything else. So just because he played second, it didn't matter.
Right. Nice. Yeah, because sure it varies from team to team, and the numbers, kind of like you said, there's spots in there that really kick into you, and some really, for some coaches, doesn't matter as much, and this one it does. And so that's good. It's good to hear, because not everybody has the top 60 time or have this or have that. And
you don't need it.
Yeah. And I think, and you'll probably kind of see the same thing, is that being from Canada, it's tough to show your skills sometimes unless you're in front of people on a more continuous basis, especially go ahead.
I was just going to say, the one thing too that I think people have done a better job or starting to understand better is, like, the players in Canada you guys don't usually have the reps or the amount of games or competition under your belt by the time you get to college that the kids down here have had. And I think coaches are starting to understand that better because they're seeing the jumps that are made from year one to year two, excuse me, when you do get to college. And that's something to always keep in mind. So when we would look personally, like we would view you guys knowing that we're expecting a bigger jump from you guys in college than we are from a typical kid we see on an everyday basis here, just because we know kind of their exposure to competition that they're getting on a consistent basis, kind of what they're doing all the time. Whereas again, you guys are constrained by the weather, constrained by just being frank, like the number of good ball players up there isn't what it is here. So therefore, the day in and day out pitching that you see, the day in day out hitters that you have to face, like it's not what it is here. So when those things do catch on, like that's what's tough. Sometimes you guys come down to the U.S. for tournaments and you might show bad, but you're seeing an arm that you've never seen before, and now you're expected to hit it. Whereas these guys have seen that arm every weekend. So it's not that you can't do it, it's the adjustment of it. Okay, next time you see it, are you better? That's kind of what we're looking for. And if we can see that you can adjust as you go and you start to adapt to things you're doing and seeing, like that's what we're looking for, because we know that that's going to play.
Good. It's good to hear because I know sometimes it does get a bit of a constraint, especially our high school ball. Like you said, it's not strong by any stretch. I know you didn't have high school ball when you were here, so now it's more house league-ish, I guess. Toronto's a
Right.
little bit stronger and Windsor a little bit, but in this area, not very strong. So it's hard for recruiting side and guys are going, hey, what high school do you play for? Because that's usually the higher level that guys are playing on compared to we're the other way, we're summer ball compared to high school ball. So I'll kind of keep moving in that direction is how do you guys go about recruiting potential athletes? Like kind of what's your system?
Yeah, so I think like um, the one thing is narrowing down what our needs are. Okay, that's the one thing, especially at schools. Division I schools all have roster caps, or at least allegedly you're supposed to. Most teams will start the fall with a few guys more than the 35-man roster. So every year is a little bit different. Each school is going to be different, guys. One school may need 2 catchers, one school may need no catchers. So it's just a matter of does what you do fit their needs? And sometimes it's just not always a match. So the first thing is we have to identify what we need. And within that, okay, we need a corner outfielder that can really hit, because our lineup or the rest of us are we're pretty good defensively. We need a bat more than we need a guy that can really play the outfield. So again, now we start to hone in a little bit more on specifics. What we try to do is we will scour. We were someone that if you looked at when we were in the regionals last year, we were made up from like I think 13 or 14 different states and countries combined. So we had one Indiana kid in our starting lineup, and we were Indiana State. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but basically we will go wherever we need to find what we're looking for. Um, we get started usually by we get a video and email. We find something on one of the recruiting services, or we get something from a coach or an org. Usually the emails, videos, or a call is usually how it gets started. Then we'll start doing our homework from there. And then our goal is to hopefully see you in a game at some point, hopefully multiple games, and kind of go from there is kind of the initial beginning. Start to get to know you as a person, what your ambitions and goals are, kind of where you're at academically, make sure we even have the academics you're looking for, and ultimately again trying to really figure out the right fit piece. Indiana State was more of a blue collar. Like I said, the guys that we had nice facilities, they weren't the top of the line. So you got to have guys that were willing to kind of basically just go work.
So, that's things that we've been talking about here is about that letter has to be kind of that first introduction to you guys. It's I still go back to the Canadian thing. It's hard to get recruited here
Right.
because you guys do have your ties with the high schools and other people around your area in a sense to start with, or people that you trust in other areas. The Canadian guys have a little bit tougher sell sometimes. Um, but we've been talking about letter, video. Those things have to be first and foremost on it. Everything, I think.
Yes, the video is probably the biggest thing, to be honest, especially from coming from an area where we can't just go and see you tomorrow or 2 days down the road, where we know that this has to be scheduled, set up. There's going to involve travel, so we have to make sure, that from a financial standpoint, some schools don't have unlimited budgets, so make sure that it's going to be worth it, things like that. So the video is the biggest thing, and not just video. Like I can rattle off some tips on what you should do that work for us really well. If you're a pitcher, like we don't need a 20-minute video. That's not it. It's more about just the quality. Can you get us video of all your pitches from standing behind you? Get us some video of the side of your open side, and the biggest thing, put a radar gun in there so we can kind of see if you guys are using Rapsodos or anything like that. That data helps, but the reality, the biggest thing is like get us good video that we can objectively look at, and kind of get a true idea and then see who you are a little bit. Infielders, like, get us video of you fielding ground balls straight on, moving to your left, moving to your right on the run, and then get us of you hitting. If you have a great 60 time, great video. If you don't, like, I don't care. You can list it. You don't necessarily have to have that all the time. If it is like a 6'3", 6'4" type runner, it might be good to have the stopwatch and a guy actually doing it so you can see video proof where we're not guessing. Same thing if you have a good fastball, a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, show us video of you throwing a pitch with the radar gun saying it. The validity of a lot of it is something that is a pretty serious part of it. Again, catching. One thing that catching videos, they usually all start with like throwing and then hitting, and it's like, I want to see you receiving off of a live arm. So give me 5-10 pitches of you receiving a live arm just zoomed in on you like we'd watch on TV. I just want to see that to start with. And then again, catchers, I don't care what your 60 is unless it's a plus. If it's a plus, talk about it. If it's not, I don't care. Um, Same thing with first base and things like that. So I think it's just important that the video quality is what we need, and you are showcasing what you do best. Okay, if you're an outfielder and you really hit and you can run, show those things. And if you suck at throwing, don't put it on there. Like, I don't care. Show me what you do really well, and I'll figure out the other pieces later. So I think that's kind of the big thing. And then find a way to get an email is probably the best route to go now. So that's how I would do it, though. Find a way to get an email, a video small enough that you can attach in an email that opens right up in a video player, as opposed to click this link, takes you to a recruiting service. Now I got to sign in and do all these other things. Like, that's fine. It'll work. But the easier, you got to understand, guys, we get 10, 15, sometimes 20 emails a day, depending what school you are. So the simplicity and the ease of getting into it is a big deal for us.
Good. That's good to hear, because I know I'm the same way. If I get anything too long, I'm not opening it up, or I'm not reading it all the way through. And
I
if
want
it,
things that stand out. Why should I make me open this video? Put something in the headline or whatever that makes me want to look at your video.
good. It's good to hear. Um, so I think you kind of touched already on how many players you carry. I think you're capped at 35. So that kind of makes a big decision for guys to kind of, do their homework ahead of time. Because I think it's like you said, you guys have certain needs and not needs, I guess, in a sense. So guys to do their homework, even though that's a school they really want to go to, that school may not need you at that time. So 35 guys is a lot of guys to try to, get scholarships in there. And I know some guys are walk-ons and they play and that type of thing, but you got to be willing to fight a little bit for your position.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of all of this, is like, because if a school wants you, like, they're going to tell you what you want to hear at the end of the day. I hate to say it, that's the truth, though. Like, they're not going to, if I really want you, I'm not going to tell you things that's going to potentially scare you away. I'm going to reword it in a way that still makes it sound appealing to you. So, we see a big big part of you. We see you pitching in the future here. Like, we really want you. Yeah, coach, I'm looking on your roster. You guys had 8 juniors that threw all your innings last year, so they're all going to be seniors next year, right? Yeah, but we may lose 1 or 2 to the drafts. Okay, so let's still leave 6 of your main arms throwing 70% of the innings. And again, I haven't said a word about you pitching year 1 because of that. So I think do your homework, look at the roster. How important is it to you to play year 1, or isn't it? Is it just about getting into the school and program you want to be at, knowing that it might take a year or 2? I think junior college is a very underrated place, and you're going to see it this year with all this stuff that just happened. JUCO baseball is going to be unbelievable this year, with all the transfers that are going to happen and all the high school kids that were seniors this year that thought they were going to places for opportunities, and now there's a lot of seniors that will be back that will be clogging up those spots. So there's going to be a bit of a trickle down effect in the next year or 2. It's really unique. I don't know that anyone truly knows how they're going to handle it and move forward with it. But again, the thing that you can do right now is make yourself better than everybody else. Do whatever you got to do to make yourself better, and that other piece will take care of itself. Um, so that's where I get kind of stuck. You see a lot of showcases, and I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but you get a lot of showcases and things like that. Are those important to go to? Yes, if they don't know who you are yet, or if you haven't been anywhere where people can find you online or find you somewhere. Don't go if you're not ready. Like, understand that if my skill level isn't where it needs to be yet, and I go show off in a showcase, all you're going to get is a line through your name. So get better first and then worry about that part afterwards. There's no hidden players anymore, generally speaking. There are, but there aren't. Like, the internet is too powerful now. There's too many people out there trying to make money off of recruiting stuff. Like, it's a lot harder and harder for guys to hide. So just get better is all I'm going to say. And then that part will take care of itself, and do your homework. Again, there's a lot of junior colleges that would beat Division I teams. There's some Division IIs that would beat the lower end Division Is. Again, find the right fit. That's all I can stress, is find the right fit. Not every place is cracked up to what you think it is.
That's good. That's good to hear. 'Cause I think the same thing. You got perfect game, and why go there and be ranked 2,500, 2,500th, whatever you want to call it. If you're not in the top, 100, you're wasting a lot of money, I think.
Nobody's scrolling down that far.
No, for sure. For sure. So kind of I haven't prompted you into this one too much, but so I know you're a Badger player like 12 years ago, somewhere in that range. It's been a while. And things have changed. Things have changed since then. What do you say easy to you? Me. It tells me how old I am right now. So I know it's changed now since when you've been here, but maybe just kind of a little bit of how the Badgers helped you kind of get even prepared for college and some other things.
No, I think, the biggest thing that going back, I still remember, like, going to a place that was a year round, like, program, the way, everything was taken care of through the off season and through the season and things like that, just opened your mind to, or opened your eyes to truly, like, what it takes to play this game at a higher level. It's no longer just kind of a summer club sport. And I'm not saying not to play other sports. It's more like, just, I think back then there was only like us, maybe the Thunderbirds, if they're still around, and the OBJs were kind of the main 3 that had taken it to that kind of level. And so getting to do that and play the amount of games we played in the summertime, but treat an off season like an off season while still balancing high school sports or whatever else you're doing was the best thing for me, because that's when I figured out that, okay, I'm going to probably not hang out with my friends and party as much in high school, because I can't, if I still want to play high school basketball, high school volleyball, and hockey. But I'm also required to lift 3 times a week up in London, and I'm required to practice on Saturdays in the off season, like whatever it was. Like, to me, that set me up so much. So when I did get to college, it was no change. It was just, yeah, we got baseball every day now instead of 5 or 6 days a week. Now it's 7. Awesome. Like, it wasn't a big deal for me. I had already made the decision and prioritized that, it was going to be school, baseball, and then whatever social time I had left would come if it came. So that was the big thing. Competition, that was the next big thing. Open your eyes that maybe at your smaller spots or schools or towns, like, you might be the guy, and then all of a sudden you come on a bigger stage and it's like, oh, okay, so some of my teammates are as good as me now, let alone the guys we're about to play. And then you start to figure that part out. And then it's, oh, okay, now we go to the US and play some teams that are even better. Like, starting to realize the bigger picture of all the players that are possibly out there. And the call it exposure, if you will, a good way or bad way, I think is really good. And now it's going to send you one of two ways. Either I'm going to aspire to work even harder because I just realized how many good players truly are out there, or am I have the weakness where it's like, well, if I'm not the guy, then I don't really want to be a part of this. Then, that tells you really save your time, your parents' money, and don't pursue this thing anymore. So I think for me, it was a really good way to either say we're putting 2 feet in this or we're getting out. And once you see how much you enjoyed it and the competition, and obviously winning a lot of games helps, but it was just like the dedication part that was required to me was the biggest thing that helped me personally.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear, because once you start to get with like people and playing against like
Exactly.
talent and things like that, that just even without coaching or anything else, you're just going to get better. You just don't have a choice. You have to get better, or you just won't survive in
Yeah,
those
and
environments.
exactly, it's the environment that you're in. You're with guys that are like-minded and guys that are trying to accomplish the same things you are. And talking about going to the US on a scholarship is not a foreign topic or something that you have to feel weird saying. Like, it's expected. And I think that was kind of the big part for me. That felt more at home for me than it did hanging out with friends back in Woodstock. So
Right. Right on. Well, I appreciate that too, because it's good to hear coming back from guys that have left. And I know some guys will be here and go, why are we doing all this? Why is this? Why is this? And then you, after a couple years, 2 or 3 years in, you start to go, all right, I get it. I get why. And that's, sometimes you don't understand it well at the time, I guess. So that's
yeah,
good. It's good to hear for sure.
getting prepared.
Um, yeah, so I'll open the floor if anybody wants to ask any questions, even Texas Rangers side. I know that's you've been. You said you started in the fall, and if guys want to ask any questions about that as well, that's go to it. So go ahead, Brendan.
All right. So my dream path is to kind of head into coaching college ball after I'm done playing. I'd just like to hear a little bit about kind of the path and what it took for you to accomplish that.
Yeah, great question. To be honest, like, I I didn't have those like you do at that age. That's good for you to kind of understand that's where you want to head into already. I want to say stumbled into it a little bit. I had stopped playing pro ball. I was actually back in Canada for a couple months, and I had a sales job. I was making pretty good money. I had just graduated probably 2 years ago, and what I started realizing was going to work every day it wasn't enjoyable for me. The people I was surrounded by, it was foreign. Like, I hadn't done anything except be around baseball people for the last 8 years of my life, and they had an opening for a graduate assistant position, which is the way I basically what that means is I went back to University of Indianapolis. They paid for my master's. So while I'm taking classes for 2 years, I'm also an assistant coach. And that's where I started getting to work with the pitchers there. And honestly, I absolutely fell in love with it. And from that first day in there, I was like, all right, screw this. I want to coach. And then got my 2 years of my master's done. And I think I had one more year there and then I eventually, got on with a different place. But that's kind of how it went for me, is going to be a GA as the first kind of intro into it, and then building from there.
Thank you.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thomas Zdorsky.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Thomas?
I'm all right. I'm a grade 10 student here, and I'm wondering when would you suggest to take an SAT if I'm looking to go to an American university for baseball?
Um, Good question. Again, kind of one of those things of making sure you're ready before you do it. I would say probably sometime in that grade 11 year. I would recommend at least getting your first go at it, maybe in the fall of grade 11, knocking that out, and then seeing how you do. And if not, redoing it again in the spring. Um, if you want to take a crack at it in grade 10, there's going to be no harm. You'll at least have an idea of what to do. And test scores, again, are kind of like where if I saw your test score and I knew that it was close to something for like academic money, getting more of it, I might ask you like, hey, are you planning on taking this again? If so, what's the likelihood you can increase that by this amount? Um, but anytime you can kind of get that first marker out of the way of kind of like, okay, this is kind of where I'm at right now, that gives you a pretty good ballpark of, do I need to take it again? If so, how much more should I study for it? Or I did a lot worse than I was expecting, so crap, I really need to buckle down. Taking it earlier is not necessarily worse. Definitely don't wait till the very end where you only have one time to do it. That's what I would recommend.
Awesome, that's awesome. That's the answer I needed. Thank you.
Glad it was.
Good stuff. Carter McTasney.
Hey, my question would be, have you ever like chosen like more than one player like that you knew like they would feed off each other and make themselves work harder? Like obviously they're both good players to start with, but after talking to them, experience like knowing what they're like and getting like the same vibe off of them, even if they weren't like your first choices, would you pick them knowing that they would both end up pushing each other?
Potentially, that would have to be a case by case thing, more like, are we talking scholarship players? Are we talking walk-ons? That's kind of the tough one. You're referring to like taking both two players together, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Or like it's already like an existing player, but there's this one guy that's like younger, and you know that they would both work really well. Like they both would work really well together.
Yeah, I think that's something that we wouldn't ignore. I wouldn't say we would solely take someone based off of that, but talking about those boxes I mentioned before, of obviously they're competitive, driven people. Um, that would be a check in the right direction. It would kind of come down to, we can't solely take you strictly on that, but if it was a situation where it was kind of like, we're not really sure, that could be something that pushes it over the edge. It definitely isn't a bad thing. I will say that, but to strictly take you based on that, we wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Right on, nice job. Nice questions. Anybody else have any questions as we go along, even about the minor leagues? Go ahead, Cole.
What GPA or grade point or grade average would you start giving money for the academics?
Oh, what was Indiana State? I want to say Indiana State was, I think, a 3.0 was kind of the bare minimal. And then kind of, I think like the 3.3 was next, and then maybe a 3.75 might have been the upper one. So we kind of were in a tiered system with that. You're not going to get any, generally speaking, I don't want to speak for all schools, but generally speaking, like be above a 3.0 coming out of high school. Do everything you can to be above a 3.5. That's kind of what I tell guys, like the minimum, like be a 3.0, don't be less than that. Don't put yourself in that position, but do everything you can to be a 3.5 or higher.
Okay, thanks.
Nice. Now, is there a list, say, at the school that people can look at, or is it for academic scholarship, academic side? Because I think sometimes there's scholarships that players can get, but sometimes they don't know where to look for it, or kind of give a general idea saying, if I got this type of scholarship could be available.
Right. I think it's going to depend on every website, but like for Indiana States, I want to say Ours was fairly open and easy to access. I think it was on their website. I think you just clicked on usually you'll find it under one or two places, either financial aid or under admissions. And then within that, you're looking for, it should just be titled scholarships. Ours were broken down by where you're coming from. So we had one under international students. We had one under incoming freshmen or incoming transfers. So, and then from there, it would basically show you all the possible ones, and within that it'll show you like the requirements for each one and who that was available to or not available to. I think I want to say most schools should have something relatively similar. The people that I would email is always email admissions or financial aid, probably admissions first. And I wouldn't email baseball coaches. A lot of times that you won't get the feedback you're looking for. I would just email admissions directly, and they're usually pretty good if they see prospective students reaching out. So they can at least give you some guidance in the right direction if you can't find it online.
Nice. Yeah, it's good because I think some guys are not, they just don't know where to search sometimes for certain information and things like that. So that's good.
School is different.
Yeah, for sure. Alex Brown.
So how, like, what's
Can't
the
see.
difference?
We need to see you there, Alex. There you go.
What's the difference? Like, how important is it? Sorry. How much better will it make you look if you have high academics over skill? So, like, how much more will that attention will that give you as a player?
It would depend on the school. I say that because obviously if you're looking somewhere like the Ivy League, you don't have a choice. Like they will filter by academics first and then look at skill second. Indiana State, we're going to look at skill first and then academics second. And I only say that because getting Indiana State doesn't take a rocket scientist. So we have a larger field to draw from. So the more higher the requirements for academics as a school gets, the smaller the field will be that they have to pick from. So if you're gonna go that route, make the academics really high. Don't be kind of mid, if that makes sense. The less your academics are, you better get your skill up there, and the less your skill is, your academics can help you be more attractive. But again, depending on the school, it might not necessarily matter.
All right. That help you out there, Brownie?
Yep.
All right. Perfect. All right. If there's any more questions at all before we kind of tag off here. All right. So I want to thanks Jordan. I greatly appreciate that today because it's definitely things that with everything going on, this definitely helps our guys because it's not always the avenue that we get a chance to talk about or dig that much deeper into just because we're on the field right now. We probably should have had about by the end of this weekend, we should have been 10 games deep already. So once you get all that in practice and everything else, and they would have been at school. So it's things we can dig into, and definitely getting it from the horse's mouth per se is really beneficial for us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's awesome. Like I said, I owe a lot to where I am from where I started back in the London Badger days. So the other thing too, guys, like I know that feel free to ask me anything regarding school stuff. I'm not in it right now, so I don't have a problem telling you the truth. If you're getting kind of mixed vibes from coaches or you think you're not sure about it, even the process of going to a school, like questions regarding visas or financial stuff or whatever, like I'm gonna post my email right now in the chat, so hopefully you guys can see that. So if something comes up offline, again, feel free to hit me up. I have a passion for wanting to help out Canadians as much as possible, guys. There's a reason we always try to recruit them at Indiana State. We had two or three, our starting catcher, our Sunday starter, and I want to say another one. We had three and our starting first baseman on our regional team that lost to Vanderbilt in the regional finals, who obviously won the national title, but that's who beat us out. But we had three Canadians in our starting lineup. Again, something that we we do, and I've helped a lot of them just from answering the questions that parents usually don't have a clue about either. I know that the Badgers and Mike do a phenomenal job of helping you guys prepare for that stuff. But again, if you need another resource, please don't hesitate. I would love to help any way I could.
No, I appreciate that. I'm glad you're able to do that and take up the time. So you just might have opened a can of worms there with your email, but
That's all right.
yeah, definitely all good. And wish you guys luck. Hopefully you guys get on the field here soon. I know you're on the field a little bit on a kind of a limited time and limited group right now, but hopefully you guys get back on the field, because the sooner you guys get on, that'll probably help us get back on too and open the doors for us a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. And if you guys are still fortunate to have your moms around in your life, make sure you take the time to spend with them today.
It's awesome. Greatly appreciated. All right, gentlemen, you guys can all go back and have Mother's Day dinner.
Thank you.
Your mother probably cooked for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know what Dad got it.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it too. That's very helpful, because quite honestly, it's like, you know how it is. Like, we're coaching and sometimes we're like dads, right? They've been around long enough. They're going to kind of go, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah. They tune you out a little bit sometimes. So it's good to get another perspective, especially with somebody else that's in the field.
I know you do a good job covering this stuff with them. It'll be like, man, coach, did you hear what he said on there? Like, yeah, I've told you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You'll get that when you're with your little one too. It'll be the same thing. Oh yeah, somebody else told you? Yeah, I've been telling you that for 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah,
Good.
no, that's good. I
Good.
appreciate that. That'll help. Carson was on too, and Carson and Mitch were both on the background there, so they were listening in. And Carson's he's at over 90, 91 right now, velo. So I know he's actively looking, and
You dude.
it's good to hear. Kind of gives him. I think we had Soroka on the other night, so he got to talk a little bit, and it's that extra little spark once in a while. And he's like, yeah, he sounds like me. He sounds like what I do. He sounds like he just hates losing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, good. Keep on that. And I think he took the kind of one of those lessons where he said, I take the off season so I can I'm more prepared and I can beat the next guy when I get back on the field. That's how I approach the off season. He's like, yeah, okay, that's right. That's how I look at it. So it's good.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. If he has a question or anything from the school side, like I said, if you're like, yeah, because a lot of stuff's changing right now. It's every day with especially Division Ones and from this COVID stuff. So like I said, I'm still pretty tightly intertwined with it from the coaches and stuff. So if anything comes up, I'm sure just feel free, reach out.
Absolutely. I will for sure. And I'm glad you have kind of put yourself out there to help out for sure.
Yeah. No, like you said, and if he gets a lot of opportunities, which sounds like he will, and you kind of want some deeper info